So the whole COVID thing started about 3 years ago, and we're finally learning what a lot of people suspected from the beginning, which is that the experts either didn't know what they were talking about or they were lying. Now, it's kind of depressing to go through all those lies, but it's also necessary if you don't want that to happen again, and we definitely don't. Dr. Marty Makary has been chronicling them, keeping track. He's a public health expert, professor at Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, and he joins us tonight to list some of the things we learned that aren't true. Doctor, thank you so much for coming in, and thank you for keeping track of this, because I think you need an after-action report to make you better the next time. So what have we learned was untrue?
Well, Tucker, I just testified before Congress, and of course, those on the left were asking about misinformation as if that was the big problem. And of course, microchips in the vaccines as a conspiracy theory came up. Now, I don't know how many people chose not to get the vaccine because of fears of a microchip. Maybe 2 people in America or 5. How about the misinformation propagated by public health officials? The biggest deliverer of misinformation has been the United States government, and the data has caught up with all the lies now and has actually debunked many of these lies. For example, natural immunity is not protective. The Lancet study tore that apart, showed it is absolutely as effective as vaccination and probably more effective. That school closures would reduce transmission. The Europe experience proved that wrong. The schools were open, clear, and free throughout with the similar transmission rate. So that was wrong. That myocarditis is more common after COVID infection than it is from the vaccine. Not true. JAMA Cardiology showed that it was 4 to 28 times more common after the vaccine in a particular cohort. That the lab leak was a conspiracy theory. Both Dr. Farzan and Gary, the nation's 2 top virologists, told Dr. Fauci in January of 2020 in an emergency meeting that Fauci called that they thought it was the lab leak, and yet it was billed as a conspiracy. And finally, that the bivalent vaccine and the boosters are effective and necessary for young people. We've had no randomized controlled trials. Dr. Jha at the White House said it's crystal clear. To me, it's crystal clear a young, healthy person should not get it. No one on the congressional committee or at the CDC has ever been able to tell us if any healthy American child has died of COVID. It may have been a couple, could have been 3, 5, 10 over 3 years. That's way below any respiratory pathogen. How can you push something so aggressive with such absolutism and dogma without the data? We don't even know if any healthy child has ever died of COVID.